Hello, friends. Here we are, back again with another episode of the Diet Diaries. This is the episode that will go live on Monday, March 23rd. And thank you, as always, for being here. I'm just going to be real with you guys. I'm not in the mood to record a podcast episode today. Just having kind of a tough Monday mentally. But this is my day to get this done. And so I am showing up and I am getting it done. One, because I need to get it done because I publish an episode every week and that's very important to me. And to not publish an episode next week because I wasn't in the mood to do it today is just not something I would do. That's totally out of alignment with my values. And also because I know I'm showing up for you guys. There are people who listen to this every week. And I also don't want to let you down. But truthfully, it's really more about myself. I'll just be honest with that. And so I just wanted to share that and just let you know that, like, I don't always feel like doing this. I don't always want to do it. And I show up and I get it done. Again, not just to like check the box, although sometimes there's nothing wrong with checking a box, but because I come back to how would I feel if I didn't do this? And how am I going to feel when I do it? And when I'm not in the mood to do something, right, it's also then hard to think about, well, can I do this with integrity? Can I do like the best possible job ever? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be my best podcast episode ever. I have no notes written. I know what I want to talk about, but I have no notes written. And usually I have some notes written. But I don't think that every time we show up to do something, that it has to be our best. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think we as humans can operate that way. Sometimes you're going to show up and it's going to be like good enough or it's going to be baseline. For lots of different reasons. Now, if you only ever show up that way, okay, maybe that's an issue. But sometimes based on circumstances and different reasons, sometimes it can be really hard to show up with your best. And to say that if I don't show up with my best and not to show up at all, that's all or nothing thinking. And using well, if I can't do my best, I'm not going to do it all as an excuse for that, I actually think is not a cop out, but I think it's like all or nothing thinking kind of like in disguise. And so again, I just wanted to kind of quickly be upfront about that with you guys. Not to like hedge what this episode may or may not turn out to be, but just to let you know that like I am just like you, right? This is going to sound dumb, like stars, they're just like us. I'm not a star. I think you get my point, right? I struggle with the same things that you guys struggle with. Just because I do this for a living, just because I have been through a lot of work and behavior change, doesn't mean that it's all just like, oh, snip, snap, everything's like cool and good to go. I have to do a lot of mental work on a lot of days. And that's normal. That is normal. You're not always just going to want to show up and do the thing, even if you've been doing it for a really long time. I've been doing this podcast for, 5.5 years? And there's still Mondays when I show up and I don't feel like doing it. So anyway, it's a little bit of a personal start. Let's dive in. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to build on last week's episode. So last week's episode, if you didn't listen, I was talking about the 4 key things, for lack of a better term, that I have done that have helped me maintain my weight after gaining and losing the same 30 pounds for 20 years. And when I say maintain my weight is maintained about 10 to 12 pounds up from that low end of that 30-pound loss. So, just kind of shy of that midpoint, which I think is a relevant and important piece of information to include in that. It's not maintenance at the top end. It's not maintenance at the low end. It's maintenance just a little bit shy of the middle. And as I was it was a super quick episode, less than 15 minutes, which is exactly what I wanted it to be. And as I was talking it through, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I will actually pull out each of these topics and do a slightly more in-depth episode. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not sure if I'll end up doing all 4, but I am going to do this one. And that is how I walk 11 to 13,000 steps a day. I talk about it a little bit in that last episode, but I'm going to kind of expound upon some of it now. So a little bit of backstory. I love walking. And I will just be upfront about that. Some of you may hate walking. Some of you may find walking boring. And it's not that I find walking exciting. I just find it easy. It is something I can always do. If I don't feel like exercising, if I don't feel like exerting myself, I can always go for a walk. And when I walk, I'm not like hardcore, like power walking. I'm walking at a good clip, but I'm not like, I don't know. I'm not like an Olympic power walker kind of thing going on. I'm not like active, like hardcore, like pumping my arms. I'm walking at a good clip as if I was like walking through an airport and my flight was pretty soon. Not that I was like, I'm not running, so it's not like I'm missing the flight, but like, oh, I got to be there in the next 5 minutes. Okay, I'm walking at a good clip. And I listen to audiobooks, which I love. And I think that definitely plays a role in it for me. It's something I pretty much only listen to them when I walk. That's not like a rule that I've set for myself. It's just kind of how my life is. And so it doesn't get me to do the walks, but it's something that I genuinely look forward to. And if I don't have an audiobook to listen to, sometimes it's like frustrating and annoying. Like right now, the last two that I've read have just been duds and I haven't gotten through them and I need to pick something new. But anyway, I just went on a bit of a tangent. I was saying that I love walking. And I, for many years, only walked as exercise. I wasn't lifting weights. I wasn't doing any type of more intense cardio. I was just walking. And it was fine for a while. And at a certain point, like I started to gain weight. And my eating hadn't really changed. And I was like, oh, my body's kind of like adapted to this. This walking is kind of my baseline. I've got to change things up. And that prompted me to add in a little bit more higher intensity exercise, right? So I think this is a really important distinction between movement and exercise. And when I taught movement, I talked about this all the time. It's actually one of my favorite things to talk about. Exercise is time that you take and an activity you do specifically to move your body. That is the sole purpose. You are going to a workout class. You are going for a run. You are going to lift weights. You are going to play tennis with a friend, right? Whatever it is, you are going for the explicit and sole purpose of moving your body. Now, that might have other benefits for you, like mental health and whatnot, but you are not kind of also doing something else with your time. And here's what I mean. If you go for a walk with a friend, if you walk to the grocery store, if you park really far away and have to, walk through the parking lot, if you basically anytime you use your body to live your life, that is movement. And it might seem like this is splitting hairs and semantics, but it's not really. Because typically movement, when you are using your body to live your life, is not going to be strenuous. It's not going to be like super intense. It's going to be just incorporating your body into your life, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, taking the stairs instead of the escalator, things like that. Going for a walk with a friend, you could easily be like sitting at lunch with that friend or having coffee with a friend. No, instead you're moving your bodies, right? So you're living your life, you're spending time with your friend and you're moving your body while doing it. You walk to the grocery store instead of driving. You can it might even be helpful to think about it whereas you might be sedentary, you might be doing the thing you're doing sedentary. If you can do it moving, that's movement. I hope that makes sense. And it's important because that movement can add a lot. It can add a lot of steps, and it adds a lot of steps for me. And that's why I'm bringing it up. If I only relied on like my workouts, I could never get in 12,000 steps a day. Nobody gets in 12,000 steps a day through exercise alone. Nobody. You would literally have to spend like hours and hours of your day walking. It's just not realistic. So I get those steps in a couple of different ways. And this is not necessarily going to be relevant to your life. So I'm not sharing this so that you can try and like plug and play this into your life. I'm sharing this so that you can see that it takes a lot of thought and awareness to get this done. And I do it not every single day, but most days. If I don't quite hit 11 to 13, I'll be like in the 10s. It is a rare day for me where I get less than 10,000 steps. Definitely happens, but it's pretty unusual. And I'm so used to doing this that it's very much a part of my life. I don't have to think as much about it anymore because it's not automated, but I know what I need to do to get it done. So if you're first starting out and you are someone who wants to try getting more steps as a way to maintain weight, to play a role potentially in weight loss, to play a role in mental health, to play a role in cardiovascular health, to play a role just in systemic health, because I don't need to tell you this, but walking is, alongside strength training, basically the single best exercise movement you can do for your body. Using your body, getting it moving frequently, many times throughout the day is huge. So I will definitely walk as exercise several times a week. Most of you know, or depending on where you are with my podcast, we have a Peloton treadmill. We got it like, I think it was like 2.5 years ago. Prior to that, we had the bike, the spin bike, which I did not love. And we ended up selling that and we got the treadmill. Treadmill is phenomenal. Danny and I both use it. It's been like a really, really great investment for us. And as I said, I listen to audiobooks when I do it. And I will also often wear my weighted vest, which helps increase the intensity. Obviously, you can mess around with the incline and the speed and all that, but I am definitely walking at like a good clip. I've got the incline, depending, I'm not like, right now, I'm not doing super high. There are phases where I'll go through, I'll do like 8, 9, 10. I'm doing like 3 to 5 right now. And I will walk at like usually like a 3.3, 3.4 pace, right? So there's nothing like crazy. I do have my vest on, so that is adding intensity. If I don't have the vest on, I probably would increase the incline and the pace. And I'm sharing all these numbers with you again, not to tell you this is what you need to do. I'm sharing it with you for reference because I know people get curious. And it's so subjective to say, oh, I walked at a fast pace. Well, what does that mean? It's relative to everyone. So 3.3, 3.4 is not super fast. That's going to be in like the 17s. Once you get into like the 16s, certainly walking a 15-minute mile, that's fast. I am not usually ever walking that fast. That's really fast. Definitely at a faster pace for me would be like in the 16s. So I will walk on the treadmill for 20 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. Right? Those are ranges. So that is on those days that I walk, that definitely makes it easier to get to that 12,000 steps. On the days when I don't walk on the treadmill, there's more that I have to do. So that is exercise. That is walking exercise. That is time. Time on the treadmill is specifically set aside. The only thing I am doing there is moving my body. Yes, I'm listening to an audiobook, but I would not otherwise be listening to that audiobook like sitting down, right? If we go back to the movement versus exercise concept, if you would normally be sitting down while doing that thing and you are able to now do that thing while moving, that's movement, right? And you have to seek out those opportunities, and seeking them out is going to play a huge role in how you increase your step count. I'm going to do a little bit of a sidebar here. I probably should have done this at the beginning. Again, everyone who's listening to this is going to be at a different point in your step count. You might not even know what your step count is. You might not be someone who counts steps. Totally fine. I'm not saying that you have to do that. It's something that I have done. I like to do it. It's not something that becomes obsessive for me. It's only helpful. It's literally only helpful. On the days when I am low, I'm like, oh, I was low today. And sometimes there's days where I'm low. I'm like, oh, I'm low. You know what? I actually have time to go for a little 10-minute walk. I'm going to do that. And it's like no big deal either way. Totally different relationship for me than like calorie counting was. Step counting for you could potentially be stressful, and that's okay. There are certainly ways to be able to be aware of how much you're walking without tracking steps, right? Just noticing how many times did I get up from my desk today? How many times did I go outside? How many walks did I go for? Did I go for 1 walk, 2 walks, or 3 walks, right? It doesn't have to be steps. That's what I've been doing. That's what I'm talking about. But if you are someone who wants to increase how much you are walking, right? Let's say you know your step count. You're not going to go from wherever you are to 12,000. If you're like at 5 or 6, you have to baby step your way there. You're going to increase by 500 a day for maybe a couple weeks, and then another 500 a day for maybe a couple weeks, or maybe 1,000, depending on what strategy you want to use to increase those steps. Again, if you are very low on steps, you might be able to do it just through exercise, just through adding a 20 to 30 minute walk multiple times a week, right? That's not going to hit you every day. But again, you can also, doesn't have to be every day. You could be going for this, 3 days a week. I'm going to try and increase my step count by 2,000 steps. And then you slowly increase those 3 days to 4 days to 5 days. There's a lot of step-by-step ways to do this. I highly recommend you take that approach. I do not recommend going from wherever you are and like doubling it and saying you're going to do that every day. It will not happen. That's not how our bodies and brains adapt. So you're going to identify, am I trying to do this every day? Am I trying to do this just 3 days a week? Where am I currently at? How many steps am I taking? How many walks am I taking? How many times am I getting up from my desk or going outside? Figure out whatever benchmark you're going to use to kind of be aware of how much movement you are getting. You do need something. You have to have some awareness. And I'm going to say some way to kind of like track it or to notice, am I actually doing more of the thing I said I was going to do more of? If you don't have a way to mark that, then you're never going to know. So there does have to be some type of quantitative, sometimes in my head, quantitative benchmark for where you are with walking. And you're going to increase that by a small amount, right? If let's say you're taking 2 walks a day right now, maybe you're going to add in a third 5-minute walk, right? What is the duration of those walks, or what is the distance of those walks, right? You are going to add on something else that's a small amount that's very, very doable. That might feel even like ridiculously doable, that it's like super easy and why would I even bother doing this? Well, that's great. Then it'll be no problem for you to get it done, get the evidence you can do it, and then build on. Right? If you're a step count person, and let's say you're at 5 or 6 or 7,000 steps a day, and you want to add, let's say, 1,000 steps, great. Then you have a way to kind of measure that. If you are, very sedentary at your desk and you don't really get up, how many times a day do you get up from your desk and move your body around? Okay, can I increase that by 1 or 2 times and walk around my space for 5 minutes? This is going to look different for everyone. This is highly, highly personal. So I'm trying to cover a bunch of different scenarios. So just back to kind of how I do it, I'm kind of interweaving how I do it with some suggestions of things that you can try that will meet you where you are at, that you can experiment with, see how they go, what worked well, what didn't work well, and then adapt, right? Always going through that iterative process of trying 1 or 2 things, experimenting, getting curious, paying attention. What worked well about this? What didn't work well about this? What, if anything, do I want to change? What do I want to keep going with? Right? And you are repeating that process over and over and over and over again. That's what we do in coaching. That's how you create your own way of eating and stop following a diet. That's how you figure out how to get more movement into your life. That's how you get more. It's really kind of how you do anything. It's really how you create behavior change. That process, that iterative process, is at the core of it. So I mentioned my treadmill walks. The really big way that I get most of my steps in is through walking my dog, Joey. So we have a dog. She has to get walked. That is built in kind of movement into my life. She has to get walked. So I think that's kind of an interesting one between movement and exercise. I have to take care of her. We have a fence. We got a fence in November. We haven't used it as much recently just because of the weather. I could let her out in the backyard and run around and not get those steps in. But I'm not doing that because walking her is good exercise for her and it's good movement for me. So I really see that as movement. And guys, it takes time. So this is something I have not talked about yet, which is the vast diversity of people's schedules and lives. I work from home and I work for myself. That is very, very different from someone who works for a big company 5 days a week in the office and commutes. Could not be more different. We do not have the same 24 hours in a day. You are not going to be able to approach this in the same way that I approach this. So I'm not suggesting that you do. But you can approach it in a way that works for your life. So that's where you need to really think critically about what's your benchmark for measuring this and how are you going to slowly increase that. Which I can talk a little bit about, right? So let's say you don't have a pet. Pets are like not in your life. There have been times like when Joey was away, we did a 4-week residential obedience training with her. It was like a year and a half ago. So we had her for like a couple months and then she went away for 4 weeks. And I was already in the routine of walking her so much and she left and I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like, what am I going to do? I went out at the times that I would have typically walked her and I went for a walk by myself. My body was so accustomed to moving. And this is the other thing. Like I have been walking so much for so long that if I don't do it, I don't feel like myself. I literally will feel like I need to crawl out of my skin. And there are times when I know I'll get irritable. I will just feel off. And then I'll be like, oh, I haven't walked as much today. I need to go for a walk. And even in the winter, I will walk in the cold. Like I live in New Jersey. I don't live in San Diego or in Miami. So I have that working for me in terms of like, oh, well, you work from home and you don't commute and all these things that like, I get that you're going to say, well, I do have to deal with climate. We have a treadmill and that's awesome. And so this doesn't happen often, but I will get on there for like 10 minutes if I need to like move my body. But my point in talking about the thing with Joey, right, is I have the dog. And so one of those walks, I'll tell you how this works. One of those walks happens very early in the morning. I get up before 7 and I take her for a walk. So absolutely, pending your schedule, right, can you fit in a short walk early in the morning? It's a movement. I walk her, it's between like 15 and 20 minutes for that walk. It doesn't have to be that long. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, right? This is where you're going to get caught up. A lot of people are going to get caught up in the all or nothing trap. Well, if I can't walk for 20 minutes, why bother? No, you need to notice yourself doing that. You need to notice your brain telling you that and say, okay, brain, cool, you're going to think that. I don't have to listen to you. I'm going to try a 5-minute walk and see how that goes. This is a huge, huge part of this, is noticing those patterns of thinking. And then I walk her usually midday, and that's a slightly longer walk, usually closer to like 25 minutes. And then I walk her like late afternoon. And then Danny walks her before bed, which is not a long walk. It's usually just like a 5-minute. So I plan for this in my day, right? And certainly there are times where I might have back-to-back clients or back-to-back meetings and I have to shift that stuff around. But I know every day that those 3 walks have to happen and I plan around it. Errands, lunches, again, work meetings, clients, I plan around it. Like I would never work 10 to 3 back to back in terms of like being on like face to face with clients. I have to walk her. So I have my schedule set up so that that doesn't happen. And I know like if we are, I can't even think of a good example of this, but between the hours of 3 and 9 p.m., I'm very often like driving Ben places or carpool or like whatever's going on. And so I know that I have to figure out, okay, if Ben has to be here at this time and we have to leave at this time and I have to pick up this kid and we have to do dinner, when am I walking her? I am thinking about it. It doesn't just automatically happen. And I'm sharing this because it takes effort and because you will need to put effort into this. Yes, I've been doing this a long time, which means yes, it is easier. And I know what I need to do to make it happen. It still takes work. And that's why you need to baby step your way into this, right? Because it is going to feel hard sometimes. It is going to take effort. You are going to have to rearrange things in order to make this happen. I'm not going to lie to you. You just are. But the benefits are tremendous. Physical benefits, mental health benefits, endurance, longevity, weight management. There are so many pieces to this. And if you are someone who is not getting a lot of steps, who is not moving their body much during the day, and you are struggling with your weight, you are either gaining weight, you are trying to lose weight, are struggling to lose weight, whatever's happening there, movement is going to play a role. And again, I'm not talking about going and jacking up your workouts like crazy. I am talking about adding more movement into your day. Now, to kind of circle back on that, right? I take Joey for walks. When I went out, when she was at the obedience training and I went out and walked at those times anyway, that's exercise, right? I would have been at home doing work. And I can't really like do work while I'm walking. Sometimes I actually get a lot of ideas when I'm walking, which is really cool. If I'm stuck on something creatively and I'm like pushing myself and nothing's coming, I'll go for a walk and very often something will come to me. And that's like a known phenomenon that happens for lots of people. And it's not a phenomenon. There's a lot of like biochemical reactions that are happening when you move your body, and they connect to your immune system and they connect to your nervous system. And they connect to, how you manage your emotions. And so it can really impact a lot of things, which is super cool. But it's going to take planning. You are going to have to figure out when, where, and how am I going to add in some more movement and or exercise into my day. Is that a 5 or 10 minute walk early in the morning before work? Is it a 5 or 10 minute walk around my office or outside around the block, or depending on what type of office building you work in, like if you have a campus during the day, is it going to be a 5 to 10 minute walk after work? Or now, this is a great time of the year to start this because we're getting longer days. You have more daylight, right? So let's lean into it. Is it something at night? We often, as a family, this happened I think it was last Monday or Tuesday night, maybe Tuesday. Basically, it was the first or second night of daylight saving starting. We went for a family walk. We have been doing this for years at night. It's a way to spend time together while moving our bodies. Ben actually, he used to walk. This time he like rode his bike slowly while Danny and I were walking. It's what he preferred to do. We would have otherwise been sitting at home. Truthfully, everyone probably would have been on some type of device. We probably would not even have been spending time together. Maybe we might have been watching TV, but likely we probably would have been doing separate things because it was early. It was like 7:30, and I don't think Ben had something that night. I can't even remember now. It was like a rare night where there wasn't an activity. So spending time with your family while moving your body is movement. And that can be a really cool way to do things. This episode is getting long. Wow. But what I'm hoping is coming through is I wanted to share how I do this. It does not mean that that's how you're going to do it. And that if this is something you want to work on, how to approach that, how to build it in slowly and then ramp up from there. And recognizing it's going to take effort. It's probably going to feel frustrating. You may have to like put it into your calendar and move meetings around, right? I'm not like, this is a thing. This is not just going to happen. And I think it's really easy with things like this. I think we all do this as humans, where we kind of look at someone else who's doing something and we're like, oh, well, they have this, they have that, right? You could easily say about me, oh, she works for herself, she works from home. I do. I make my own hours. That is a level of flexibility that is unmatched for a lot of people. I don't have young children anymore. My kid is in school, 8 hours, not 8 hours, whatever. And he has been for a very long time. He's almost 14. So we are all at different life stages. And again, I fully acknowledge we don't all have the same 24 hours in the day. And also, if you look at this, not as going from 0 to 60, if you look at this on a piece by piece, step by step basis, I guarantee you will be able to find one place to start with where you can add in some more movement and get in some more steps. I guarantee you. It might be 5 minutes a day. That is okay. That is counts. That is hugely important. That gives you evidence of what you are capable of, and those steps matter. That is 5 minutes more steps than you were previously doing. I'm going to share my favorite all or nothing thinking analogy that uses math, because math is very concrete. There's no debating it. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is always going to be 0. But 0.01 plus 0.01 plus 0.01 plus 0.01 is going to add up to something bigger over time. So doing that 5 minutes, which in your brain you might see as like 0.01 is so tiny, is going to add up. If you do nothing, it's always going to be 0. And that's a really helpful tool to walk yourself through when your brain's like, don't even bother. You could go get something done in those 5 minutes. And you know what? You can. Maybe you can do a work call. Maybe you can respond to some text message like voice texting or emails via voice texting, right? You can absolutely get shit done while you're doing that. And I highly recommend it. Right? If you are someone who works full time in an office job, or something where there's just really like so much less flexibility than if you work from home, and lots of people, still do work from home, even at some days a week, right? Yeah, if you can get something done, get something done. Can you go for a walk with a colleague? Can you listen to voicemails? Can you return a phone call? Can you voice text email responses? I do that. I do that too. It's not like, I'm not just like walking, like staring at the birds and the peas and whatever. There was something that popped into my head as I was just saying all of that. And of course it escaped my brain. I know what it was. It's jumping around a bit, but it's all related. If you are someone who has like a corporate job and you work from home some days and you commute some days, you can treat those days differently, right? Most people have more flexibility on their work from home days. Generally speaking, maybe you don't. Can you add in something on those days and leave your office days the same, right? There's so many ways to look at this. And I'm feeling like I didn't talk as much about the movement piece of what I do specifically, because I did talk a lot about Joey. So I'm going to add that on now and try to like wrap it up soon, because this got long. When I go to the grocery store, I always park far away. That's like the oldest trick in the book, and it's cliche. I do it pretty much every single time. I actually get annoyed at Danny when he parks really close. This is like such an easy way to get in more steps. Walking around the grocery store, those steps count. Those steps count. Or Target or wherever you are. So parking at the end of the parking lot, great. That stuff adds up. It matters. Taking the escalator instead of the stairs, or the stairs instead of the elevator, right? This stuff adds up. Are there any errands where like if you park, like we live in a town in Westfield, and my local friends will know, that has like a town center, and it's amazing. I very often park, if I'm driving into town, I'll park farther away from town. And when I can, I'll walk into town. I don't always have time, right? Because yes, this stuff does take more time, or it can. So you have to be kind of evaluating, where can I spend a little bit more time, 5-10 minutes, and get some extra movement that isn't like a 20 or 30 minute time investment, right? You have to be looking for the in-between things. That stuff adds up way faster than you think it does. And if you track your steps and you start doing this and paying attention for a couple of weeks, you will be blown away. Just by how many extra steps you can get from parking at the very end of a parking lot when you go to the grocery store. I would compare that to a day that you don't do that and don't go to the grocery store. Easily 1,000 steps. Between walking in the parking lot and walking in the store and kind of adding that all combined, unless you're like barely in the store for like 2 minutes. So then it's going to be less. I think I'm going to wrap this up. I hope this was helpful. These are absolutely things that we work on in coaching. This is behavior change. And this is how you think about movement, how you think about exercise, how you get it done, how you make it happen. It's challenging. This is really, really can be tough stuff. So if you want support, I'm here. And I'll be back next week.